There's a lot of things that make Montana great, from the mountains and lakes to some of the finest towns in the West. But what really makes this place special is you. Our communities are full of people who are working hard to build good lives and remarkable things. At Opportunity Bank, our passion is helping folks do just that. Together, we can make a good thing even better. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Stop by and see us or visit us online. Member FDIC.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Well, riding with Ryder back for another week. We missed last week because it was a bye and it was Thanksgiving and all that sort of stuff. But Mike Ryder back with us. He's feeling better. I'm feeling better. And now we're into the playoffs. So thanks for being here, Mikey. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, doing great, man. Doing great. Thanks for having me. And yeah, like you, took a while to kick some of that sickness, Colter. My goodness, between my family, it's been like just a grip of stuff. Who knows, COVID and ear infections and pink eye, and I mean the whole kit and caboodle. It's just been like one thing after the other, and then you throw in a little bit of travel on top of it. Quite the experience for about the last 3 weeks.
Well, it only makes us tougher, right? So we're all good. Speaking of toughness, though, it's going to take some toughness for Montana State to bounce back. So before we get to this upcoming week, though, we don't have to spend too much time on it because we've talked so much about it the last couple of weeks across the Skyline platforms. But what did you just think of what went down in Missoula a couple Saturdays ago?
God, yeah, talk about getting punched in the mouth. It's interesting to look at all the strengths that they have, and what we deemed as strengths throughout the season, and particularly on the line of scrimmage, and to see the opposite take place, where what you thought was your advantage in a game turn out to not be the case, really on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Rather interesting. I mean, you just don't see that very often, where it really is. I mean, that's your core, that's your identity, and that's who what you lean on as far as being physical and at the line of scrimmage. And then all of a sudden you just see it not come to fruition. And you got to give credit to the Montana Grizzlies. I mean, what they did at home and the strides that they've made along the way, you got to give credit where credit's due, because it wasn't very long ago that we were talking about, man, I mean, I don't know, that they don't really block very well up front, and they look, outside of Governor up front, they're just, didn't look all that, dominating. And here they are in a rivalry game showing up, and they dominated on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And so kudos to them. They're primed to make a deep push, and gosh, they're going to be, home field advantage. They got a nice path there to Frisco if they can stay healthy and make things happen. And on the flip side, Colter, you look at Montana State, and still a really good opportunity. I still think that they have an opportunity to go and make a push and find themselves, probably back in Missoula in 3 weeks. I think they're fully capable of doing that. But how are you going to adjust? They've seen the same movie twice with Idaho and with what happened in Montana. Pretty similar, albeit.
Sure.
Scoreboard looked different. One probably hurts a little bit more than the other, just given it, be a rivalry game. But I think you have to look at to say, okay, what did we learn from these experiences? Because man, we didn't do a good job out of the gates. So how do we learn from this as a coaching staff and as a group of players? Because they got a team that's very talented, ton of history. But I'm excited that the Cats get NDSU at home. It's a different story. Playing at home is a different ballgame. That's all I can say. And of course, you make it all the way to the national championship if you do, and you kind of throw it all out because both teams are on the road, and it is what it is. But being at home is a huge, huge, huge advantage. And so I think the Cats are going to be in a good position to go and iron out some of these kinks. And What are they going to do to get better? What do they do to use the bye week to kind of scheme up to make sure that they're not in the position that they were in against Idaho and Montana?
I'm glad you brought up the lines and maybe some of the things that we thought we had right that maybe then we thought we had wrong coming out of the Cat Griz game, because I do think that sometimes you can overreact to a single matchup a little bit too much. On one hand, I thought the Griz did a great job of exploiting the few mismatches they did have in the trenches. Connor Moore was making his first start in the rivalry game. He's been great this year as a redshirt freshman there at left tackle for the Cats, but Montana made sure to put their two best edge guys right over the top of him, and that's who they were attacking. And, first time playing in front of 27,000 people, that's a tall task for a young guy. The other thing is, Just Perkins is a great player, but Alex Gubner's the best player in the conference when it comes to interior guys. So that's just going to be a sort of de facto mismatch. Gubner's a mismatch on everybody. I mean, Gubner's going to play on Sundays,
Yep.
So there's no shame in that. And, then on the other side, I thought that the Cats not having their two stud tight ends. I mean, Pickering played, but he was a little hobbled.
Yeah.
He couldn't run routes. You could tell he was in there just to block, and good for him for being tough and doing it. But, their first shot they took down the field is to Hunter Province, who, he played his first college game last week, the week before the rivalry game. And then you're throwing him a deep shot on the third play of the game in a hostile environment. That's I'm not trying to make excuses for the Cats, but there's a lot of things that didn't go in their favor. The other thing, though, is that I think that sometimes, and we've seen this especially recently in the rivalry game, and Coach Houck addressed this after the game, for whatever reason, when the home team has stolen the momentum early in the rivalry game, the last four matchups, it's been a tidal wave. It's been a complete avalanche where it's just completely a one-sided game, and the visiting team just crawls over in the corner and dies. And it's like they have no chance whatsoever. If you can flush that, though, that's what I'm getting at, is that I don't think we misevaluated that Montana State has a great offensive line and a great defensive line. I think they just played really bad on Saturday. I think you just got to go back to saying, hey, guys, we played 11 games this season. These were our strengths. We stunk it up one game. We got to forget about that. We got to realize that's still our strength.
Yeah. And aren't we, you said it, aren't we all just victim of like trying to overreact, right? I mean, we all do that. I mean, we do that. And so I think that's why we're probably currently on this side, and we're doing this and they're in the locker room. I mean, because it's the head coach's job to be like, guys, let's look, like you just said, look at the body of work. Look at the body of work where we're at. And not to say that, hey, guys, we have to find solutions around, where we fell short and how we combat the things that have gotten us in trouble. We have to be better. But I don't think that's not like a newsflash, right? So I think everybody in the locker room knows that. But what are they going to do with the opportunity at hand? And it really is a new season. These playoffs, it's anybody's deal. You want to be as healthy as you possibly can, but you kind of throw it all out. And the fact that you get a home game is a huge deal. And so what are you going to do with the opportunity? You hate to say it, but it's one of those must-win games. I mean, you got to bounce back. Otherwise, this season does look like
for sure.
What should have been. And I mean, otherwise, it just could all be for nothing. You got a deep talent pool, a lot of seasoned guys, a lot of weapons across the board. And honestly, they're a fairly young team. They really are. But the two-headed monster, which we can talk about with Sean Chambers and Tommy Malott, I think that's an interesting dynamic that we have to hopefully we see more of. And you've got some really good seniors on this squad. You don't want to waste the season, and they got an opportunity on Saturday to push forward. I think there's an opportunity that South Dakota, or that Sac State goes into South Dakota, who's not a really experienced playoff team. I think Sac State can go in there and win it. Before you know it, you got back-to-back home games for the Cats that they can handle business. So all theoretical, but the Cats need to go get this thing done. Otherwise, this season really could be looked at as what could have been.
I totally agree, man. I said that on my Bozeman radio hit this morning. I said, hey, I think this is the biggest game in terms of the arc of the Bobcat football program, certainly in the Brent Vegan era. And I would argue it's probably the biggest game since 2019 when Austin Peay came to Bozeman and the Cats had a chance to go to Final Four for the first time in, almost 40 years or whatever it was. And before that, it was probably, I mean, obviously the Cat Griz games are always going to be big, but in terms of like the the ramifications it has going into the offseason. It's besides that 2019 playoff game, it's probably the biggest game since 2015, Coach Ash's last game at the helm, when they lost to the Griz, and then that everybody got let go, and it's that's the thing is, if you win on Saturday, no matter if you put together a run or not, if you just win on Saturday, now you're back on track. You're into the final 8. Everything after that's good. It's house money. If you lose on Saturday and all of a sudden then you lost 3 out of your last 5 down the stretch, and you lost to 3 premier programs who you thought you were on par or better with coming into this year, then you have 10 months worth of questions to answer. And I think they're aware of that, though. I do think that they know sort of just the narrative around their program right now. Yeah.
And those are all, great points. And I think that you want, as a coach and as a player, you want these opportunities.
Have you or a loved one been charged or accused of a crime? If so, the stress can leave anyone feeling helpless and alone. But you don't have to be alone. Hi, I'm Dave Maldonado, and I've successfully defended Montanans for over a decade in these situations. So if you're tired of being scared, let's get you prepared. To see how, visit BigSkyDefender.com today.
You are not alone. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to find out more on how you can fight back against local and federal criminal charges.
Yep. So I mean, every game, coaches and players, that they want to be out there doing their best, and you're motivated. You got a home game, everything exciting, but there is some extra element to this thing. You've got the perennial power of North Dakota State coming to your house, and you've just lost a lot of your momentum for the season. It's going to speak volumes to what do you have in terms of the character of your group. And you hate to just put all your eggs in this basket, but it's true. This is going to be a measuring stick football game for Coach Vegan, for their staff, for a lot of these players, how they can bounce back when things don't go their way. It's going to be a monumental task, but I do think they've got the pieces in place to step up and rise to the occasion on Saturday.
I was thinking about this. Remove the fact that they got whipped so bad to the rival, and that it's the last game before the playoffs. Just say that the Cats are still in the same position, but that the most recent performance was not their most recent performance. They're just an 8-3 team that's a number 6 seed. If you would have told them, regardless of the seed or anything, that they were going to get NDSU in Bozeman at any time during the playoffs, I think they would have said, great, sign us up, right? Because they've had to go to the Fargo Dome, and, like Choate used to call us, the House of Horrors.
Absolutely.
We've had our famous line at Skyline for years. We always say Frisco, not Fargo, because no one goes to Fargo to win. So if we're traveling for the playoffs, we're saving our money to go to Frisco, because if you're going to go to Fargo to win, we just beat you down in Frisco because you're going to go to Frisco, right? So I just think that's another adjustment that they got to make. They got to just realize, hey, I mean, how many Cat fans have been wanting North Dakota State to come to Bozeman for 13 or 14 years? Like, this is, take away the most recent performance, this is a dream scenario if you're the Cats. You actually get NDSU on your home field for the first time in forever.
Yeah, and I mean, look, NDSU, going back to my point about the home field advantage, don't get me wrong, every year what they've done, they've been the best team. There's no doubt about that. But there is a factor to being like, when people have got to come to you and you've got such a home field advantage. I look at that with some of the same deep pushes that the Grizzlies had in the late 2000s. I'm not here to say that they weren't one of the top 2 teams, but I'm telling you, that home field advantage is so drastic. And now what kind of team is NDSU when they come on the road in a hostile environment in a playoff scenario? When's the last time they did it?
When you were a senior.
But they didn't even.
2010 was the last time they did it.
But they were unknown. But they were even unknown at that time. They didn't have the momentum. They were the underdog all the time. I mean, they were transitioning from D2, and so maybe I think they dropped a late game that year before they came to us in 2010, and they played. I remember watching back then on a laptop, watching them beat Robert Morris or something. They beat Robert
Right.
Morris. We were watching on a laptop, being like, all right, well, who are we going to play? And, they were relatively kind of unknown. Maybe that was just to us, but um, they haven't been. NDSU has not been in this scenario either, where they're not the favorite and they don't have home field advantage, and they got to come on the road in a tough environment with all the chips on the table. And how are they going to respond? I don't know. We haven't seen it because they've played in Fargo and then played in Frisco, and that's what the playoffs have looked for them for 13 years. So what does it look like on Saturday? I think they got a tall task themselves, and I like my Bobcats in this scenario. I really do.
At Blackfoot Communications, our mission is to connect people, businesses, and communities, bringing a world-class fiber network to homes, communities, and businesses of all sizes. Ensures Montanans have access to fast, reliable, and secure internet and phone services. Are you ready for fiber internet? To find out if fiber is coming to your area, visit goblackfoot.com/readyforfiber. Connect to more with Blackfoot Communications.
From an execution standpoint, I think that's one part where sometimes in the playoffs you have like this element of mystery. What are these guys all about? What's their personnel actually like? You can watch it on film, whatever. There's no element of mystery for this. Both teams know each other. They know what each other wants to do. I mean, Coach Began's an NDSU alum. He spent 25 years there between playing and coaching there. So there's no element of mystery there. And it's going to be a battle of the trenches, running the ball, all that sort of stuff. But to me, the two things that the Cats got to figure out answers for, first of all, defensively, they got to get back to tackling, man. I thought they were an excellent tackling team the first 8 or 9 games of the year. And then what happened? That's crazy. Like, they tackled so poorly in Missoula. You're like, what did you guys forget what you guys were doing? It was actually kind of weird to watch.
Yeah, especially those couple first series, Colter,
Right,
where you get in those third and manageables. For the Cats were third and manageable, or excuse me, the Griz were, and man, there was a couple swing routes, and again, credit to the Griz running back. He's a load, and falling forward, and but my goodness, you had opportunities to get off the field and go into your point of what Coach Hauk said about that momentum. You have got to make those plays, and so look, they had a bye week out of that. Pretty weird deal. I think there are some games where you just, man, you're off, and tackling is not what it should be. But given the bye week and what they've learned, tackling, my guess, is not going to be an issue on Saturday. If I had to guess, given the emphasis, I think they're going to run their feet and gang tackle and take care of business on Saturday. But pretty perplexing to watch, given that wasn't something that was identified early on in the season as being an issue at all.
That was, I mean, I there's always these little moments in games that may turn into big things. It was like the second offensive series for the Griz. Sebastian Valdez came screaming through the line like he always does. And he goes to shoulder Eli Gilman to the ground. That's like his trademark, right? And then he doesn't really tackle you. He just shoulders you to the ground and then stands over you. And he's so intimidating. And Gilman bounced off of him. And I think the whole Cat defense was like, oh, the biggest, baddest dude on our whole team. And he just got trucked. What are we going to do? So, but I do think that's something you can identify and say, hey, don't be cocky. Wrap them up. Let's go. Pretty simple fix. On the other side, it's the one that everybody across Bozeman, everybody across Montana is talking about right now. How do you figure out a way to get Sean Chambers more involved in the offense? I mean, I know there's all sorts of internal stuff that maybe we don't know about. Chambers has had some procedure stuff that's been frustrating, I know, to the offensive staff. He had a bunch of false starts against South Dakota State. He had couple procedure things in Missoula. Okay, whatever. That's all detail oriented. There's absolutes and then there's circumstances in life. The absolute is that Sean Chambers is an excellent football player that needs to be on the field more than 5 or 6 snaps. He was only on the field for 5 or 6 snaps in your 2 biggest losses of the year. No matter what the details are, you got to figure it out because he's just too good to not be on the field.
Yeah, and when you don't get to be the main guy at quarterback, the risk reward is that you're going to get some of those procedural penalties because you're not in a flow, right? So, how do you manage that? Because they got a good problem. They got 2. I mean, he's a capable guy. How do you get him on the field at the same time? And I saw Victor's, article on that, an interview with House, right? Which there was literally no information given, which I wouldn't expect. But
I wouldn't expect either. I can't believe Vegan let him do that, honestly. I thought, I mean, I'm all for access. I'm a media guy, but
yep.
I think in that situation, you just say, hey, I'll talk about the quarterbacks. We're not going to have a house right talk about the quarterbacks.
Yeah, totally. And House Right didn't give much, but I don't want to speculate about what's going on in the locker room, because I guess I've been there as a player and a coach, and generally the outside isn't exactly the truth is not really there, and so we don't know. But what I guess we'll just keep it to the X's and O's. There was a lot of creativity and unknown. I think the dynamic between Tommy Mellott and Sean Chambers last year, and so it caught people by surprise. But I do think there was a lot of good things, getting guys on the field and a lot of weapons, and some of the creativity and the different formations, and some of the hurry up and end arounds using Marquis Johnson, and there was just a lot of these different elements that we haven't seen. So how do you balance your core competencies, your DNA of we want to run at you and run downhill given the strength of our offensive line? How do you balance that with the fact of like, hey, but you also need to have a little bit of window dressing, some keeping guys on their toes, and some creativity that we just didn't see. We didn't see 2 weeks ago in Missoula, and we didn't see it at Idaho. But I think that's what I'd like to see. Not that they're asking me, but I think that's where you keep people on edge, is that we have these core competencies and what we do best, but we also have a few things up our sleeve. They're going to keep people on edge. We just haven't seen that. And so I don't want them to just think that, like, all right, it's NDSU versus MSU and kind of strength on strength, and we're just going to run right at them without any razzle dazzle or anything's up our sleeve. I hope that's not the case, because it hasn't proven well with the last 2 games that have tried to do that. It doesn't mean that you can't be 80-20 or 90-10, but you got to have some wrinkles in there that keep them on edge.
Mike Ryder riding with Ryder here on SkylineSportsMT.com. We could talk about this forever, but we'll talk about it again next week, no matter what happens. Thanks for being here, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Colter. Appreciate the time, man.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.